Hi, everyone. Brian back here with a brand new interview. Today, I'm with Dwight Stall, the Principal Product Manager. Thanks for joining me, Dwight.
Yeah, glad to be here, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, my first question is, in with Hasbro, what is a Principal Product Manager, and what does that really entail?
I made a switch about 2 years ago from from the senior design manager spot to principal designer because I wanted to focus more on product instead of people. That's the primary difference. When you're on the manager side of it, you're doing more. You do some product, but it's
Right.
more about working with your team and making sure you're bringing everybody along. When you take the path of principal designer, you don't have I do have some people that I work with regularly, but it's more allowing me to focus on the product itself,
Right.
the final end result. What are those holes in our portfolio that we'd like to expand into new spaces, keeping our eyes on the horizon for that, and working a lot with our partners at Disney. So it's a bit more in the trenches as opposed to managing bigger teams, but I kind of like that better. I love I still love doing, and I
Yeah.
do I do greatly enjoy mentoring, which I still have the opportunity to do. But for me, it's still I still like to problem solve with my engineers on how to improve the process, improve the product, and that's what I get to do now as a principal designer.
I mean, in terms of improving the product, it's funny because we have seen that transition ever since Hasbro has gotten licensed. It's just like all the improvements you guys have added. It's just like another level, and just it's in terms of the articulation and things like that. It's just been so much more impressive than obviously that first wave you guys had.
Oh,
So,
yeah, we've definitely come a long way since 2007 with the Annihilus build a figure wave.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a testament to the power of Hasbro, and the resources that our company has, as well as the amazing people that are not just here in our Rhode Island based office, but in our LA office, across the seas, in Hong Kong, and in the whole team, and what they everybody brings to it to be pushing the boundaries on new technologies, and all of that is wonderful. And then it's kind of our job to decide what are the right ones to implement, where
Right.
and how and why.
Yeah, makes sense. Um, so getting back actually to you for this, uh, for what you're doing in your life, what did you study in college? Like, did you study design, or was there something else? Or
Yeah, I went to the University of Cincinnati,
okay,
um, it's a little bit of a back and forth story, but if you bear with me for a second, I went to
sure,
college straight out of high school. High school, I loved art. I always, I took lots of art classes. That was my, passion. I got into the wrong college at the University of Cincinnati, and after a year, I dropped out. It was,
okay,
spending a lot of money. It wasn't for me. And then after 3 years of doing random jobs, I decided I wanted to have more opportunities open up to me. And I thought the best way to do that would be to relook at college. And when I did, I went back to the University of Cincinnati, but this time I went to talk to the dean of DAP, which is
okay,
the design college in
all right,
Cincinnati. And I said, hey, when I was here, 3, 4 years ago, I was just a kid out of high school. I didn't know anything, and I didn't do well, but I always have loved art. I've always enjoyed that kind of process. Will you give me an opportunity to get into this program? And they said that they would on a trial
nice,
basis. So I got to take the freshman foundation studios, and they said, depending on how I do in the studios, will determine whether I'm allowed to get into the program. So
okay,
um, I aced the foundations, and at the end of my freshman year, the our professors come to us and they say, where do you want to belong? Graphics, industrial, or fashion? And I said, you've seen what I've done all year. what do you think, where do you think I belong? And they said industrial design. So I said, okay. So I signed up for the industrial design program, and that's where I ended up finishing my collegiate career.
Cool. Now, was toy design, was that always something you were interested in, or kind of something you fell into?
Absolutely not. Yeah. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just liked to draw. And, going into the industrial design program, I was shown that there's so much more stuff out there. And, industrial design is basically the design of any 3D thing.
Right.
You can go into automotive design and work on cars. You can go into furniture design, lighting
Yep.
design, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, right, right.
And my program offered up co-ops, which allowed you to go to school for a quarter, and then you would take a quarter and you would actually go get a job, and you'd work in the industry in some different places and see what, just to get an idea for what it was like and see
Right.
what you enjoyed. And I did a couple different co-ops, and then I was fortunate enough that Kenner, the toy company that was owned by Hasbro, was in Cincinnati. And a lot of people, in my program were like, oh, Kenner's just a fun place to be, working on toys and stuff like that. And I'm
Yep.
like, oh, that does sound kind of cool. I'll give it a try. So I applied for a Kenner co-op, and I got it. And I went there and I was hired to be on the Tonka team.
Oh, nice.
I hate vehicles. I'm not, the cars that I drive are they're just to get me from A to B and back to A. I'm not a vehicle guy. And when I got there on the first day, they had all of the co-ops in like a bullpen, and a couple of senior level designers and managers come in, and they're like, all right, they have this list and they're going through it, and they get to my name and they're like, Dwight Stall. And I'm like, yeah, right here. They're like, you're working on G.I. Joe. And I'm like, my brain was like, what? So I got to go work on G.I. Joe. And at the time they were discussing a 3 3/4 relaunch, but they were heavily doing 12-inch. And I was working on 12-inch G.I. Joes with a couple of different designers that were, in the Kenner offices, Greg Attori, Jack Farah, Nick Langdon, Mike Braun, a whole very talented pool of designers who worked on a lot of different things, but G.I. Joe in particular. And they took me under their wing and taught me how to work on, I did some of the adventure team stuff.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
one of the very first projects I did was designing the casket for the Revenge of the Mummy's Tomb or something like that, or sarcophagus, not casket. And it was just so much fun to be working on this stuff. And I just kind of remembered how much I loved toys as a kid. And I went out and started buying some action figures. And that's when, 90s 6-inch like statuesque figures were all over the place.
Right.
From companies like Claiborne Moore and McFarlane and things like that. And I'm like, wow, these things are awesome. And I just kind of got really excited about it. And here I am all these years later.
All right, time for the kind of tough questions. Were you a comic book reader growing up?
Yeah, I what is it? In early December, there's a St. Nick's Day. It's I don't remember the details of the holiday, but that's when we would do stockings at my house, and my parents would always shove a comic book into my stocking every year. So I would get an Iron Man book, a Spider Woman book, a Batman book, and you just kind of go through these different comics, and I just kind of would hold them like kind of a treasured thing because the art inside them was so awesome, and then reading little pieces of stories was really exciting. But until I had money of my own, which happened in the early 90s when I was in high school and I had a job.
Yep.
That's when I went out and I started buying Uncanny X-Men when it was coming out bi-monthly.
Right.
And I just absolutely fell in love with the X-Men, and I bought that for, I think, all the way up until I got into college. And then I got distracted by other things, but then I eventually went back to it to kind of continue reading some of that stuff. And then, and there was other amazing titles that came out in the 90s, as we all know, and
Yep.
they kind of drew me back in as well. So I was a, I read them as a little child, but then I really got into them in high school.
Yep. Fully understand. The same way myself. So
Yeah.
high school is when I personally got into serious collecting. So that's I fully get that. Are you still a comic book collector? Do you still like go like every Wednesday and stuff, or?
No, I go to the stores maybe once every month just to kind of see what things I missed. The the benefits to things like the app though is like you don't have to worry about running out. And I have
Right.
the Marvel Unlimited, which is a wonderful way to read comic books past and present, as well as it's an amazing tool just to have at my disposal when I'm trying to get more reference and research on the costumes that have been drawn over the years. So I don't buy a lot of paper titles today,
Okay.
but I still have I don't know, maybe a half dozen long boxes in my basement full of the comics I had from the 90s to early 2000s.
No, very nice. Very cool. So, what are some of your favorite titles that are out there that you're passionate about? Not just Marvel, just in general. And, do you have a favorite character?
I think some of my favorite titles, I love reading Spider-Man. It was something that I did not read as a child. So to read the rich history of that character, and he's just such a fun character to, I would imagine, write for, with his like backstory and all of the problems he has, but the powers he has, it's just, he's a really, he's a magically fun character to read. So I love reading Spider-Man currently. I've always loved X-Men. So while it's a little bit more daunting to follow, as they have so many
Right.
different books to track, those are always ones I enjoy just hopping in and reading. Outside of Marvel, I don't think there's anything that I'm currently reading. I picked up the Battle Chasers books that came out, I think over the summer is
By
when they started.
Joe Madariga.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Joe
Awesome stuff.
Mads,
Yeah.
he was finishing up the arc from back in the 90s when he started. That was an art style that I just absolutely fell in love with in college. So I did enjoy, I actually picked up some of those to read more of that when that came back this summer. So those are probably some of the most recent ones that I picked up. As far as favorite characters go, I love all of the X-Men. There's not really, I mean,
You
I
don't
don't
need
know
to
if I
narrow it
have,
down.
yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite. I have a couple of favorite villains. I love Strife. I love Apocalypse. I think those are two really cool, classic villains that I've always really enjoyed when they come into the books and the crazy story arcs that go wrapping around them. And then all of the X-Men are just always, top of mind. Colossus and Wolverine, like in the forefront.
You're right, obviously. Now, it's what's been amazing about, Legends and what you guys do is obviously the relationship with you guys and Marvel and Disney. It's just obviously, the movie stuff, you get that in advance, like a lot of other that. But what really impresses me is how you get some of the comic characters, like they just like you're having a Hallows Eve
Mhm.
figure come out, and she's only been around for like a couple months, and it was just like, how does that? Do they like send? Do they send you the drawings in advance or something along
So
those?
yeah, sometimes we get to see stuff in advance. A lot of that comes to the great relationship we have with Marvel Disney proper, and my counterpart Jesse Falcon over at
Right.
Disney.
Okay.
Jesse is an old Toy Biz guy. He's been
Yep.
at Disney for many, many years, and he was the guy who he's the father of Legends. He created that, back in the early 2000s. So having Jesse there as someone who understands Marvel understands comics and understands toys is an amazing asset to have. And he goes on publishing retreats a couple times throughout the year. I don't know exactly how many he does, but he'll get a chance to sit in those rooms and hear about what's coming next down the line. And when he hears things that are really, really exciting, or about the big, massive crossover events that Marvel always does every year, which are always giant, epic,
Yep.
throwdowns, he will work with the partners in publishing to send us like asset packages of some of that stuff, because there's a lot of the creators at Marvel who also just absolutely love the toys and love seeing their storylines be turned into toy, as well as some of the artists and illustrators. So they're all usually just a bunch of big kids like we are when it comes to that, and seeing these things come to real 3D life is a treat for them. So they're always very wonderful to supply us with sneak peeks at some of the reference of the concept art coming down the pipe. And as best as they can, they'll give us updates, because sometimes things change and evolve through the process of development, to make sure that we're as on model as we possibly can. It's a little bit of a risk sometimes when we move so early that we're creating characters before they've really even launched on shelves. But they're wonderful partners, and they're always giving us a little glimpse behind the curtain at, we think this character is going to have a really big response. You might want to think about him. And then Ryan and the team and I will sit down and kind of like, okay, this is the information that we have. Here's the slate of figures we have planned for the year. What can we fit in? What can we move around? What can we, adjust to accommodate everybody to make sure we have the strongest offerings for the consumers at the end of the day?
Yeah, it's always been, I've always been impressed when you guys do the presentations, the live streaming, when you announce some of these figures. It's because of your relationship, you have it timed up with the storyline that's going on at the same time, which has always impressed me. Obviously, I understand production, so it does take a little longer to actually get the finished product, and but the fact that you're you do the reveals at about the same time as these storylines are going on is extremely impressive.
Yeah, that's a lot of the genius of Ryan and Dan. Those two are masters of the I'm calling it the sacred timeline. I have a Excel document that I've created that spans the entirety of multiple years, but the current year, and we always are looking at that, and that's all on mostly Ryan, but with Dan's support, to figure out who we're going to reveal when, how it all kind of has a nice story and flow to it, so that we have exciting news to share with you guys as often as possible. I just got an email yesterday about setting up another live stream for February, so always getting ready to talk about more awesome stuff coming down the line.
Yeah, like I said, it's just the huge improvement that you guys have done to the legend lines, and sometimes you guys really go deep into it, and it's just, there's a lot of characters that are just like, whoa, talk about obscure. Right? It's just like, and some things I'm just like, I never thought I'd get a figure based on this character. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge. I mean, when you look at what's behind me and you think about the length of a toy line, it's rare to have something that's still going as successful as it is today that was created over 20 years ago.
Right.
It's like, that's a long run for a toy line, period. And with the amount of characters in Marvel lore, thank God they have, 5,000-6,000 plus figures that allow us to dive into. And the cool thing about Marvel is every year they always seem to find a way of taking, I don't know, a half dozen of those really obscure characters that you may have forgotten about. And they find a way, the different writers and the different creative teams find a way of bringing those back into pop culture,
Right.
through books or through the entertainment, and you're just like, oh my god, I didn't even know about that character, or I forgot about that character, but oh my god, they are so well, developed in this story. And it's like when they can do that, it allows us to say, all right, cool, if they can flex their muscles, let's see if we can do the same, and try to figure out a way to make a toy line that has all of the characters that you would expect to see, because it's not just us buying these things anymore,
Right.
but where we have the opportunity to go deep and come up with some of those like oddball deep cuts or things that you haven't thought about for a while. It's a treat for us too, because I always love when I can add a first time to the line character in a wave, knowing that you're building out a team or a rogues gallery, and you can make more and more, and you have to kind of, it's fun, I should say, it's fun to keep in mind that those obscure characters, while they may not be known or remembered by as many people, someone out there, that is their favorite thing ever.
Yeah.
And when you can give them that and have them get so excited over seeing things that they never thought that they would ever have or be able to own, it's a real treat. And then, when so many more people are then also excited by it and they can jump in on and go along for the ride, it's just kind of it's a cool little sub piece of toy development that's just kind of a fun fan connection, and you kind of see these lines grow and the love spread for them, for all these years.
Right. So, what does an average day look like for Dwight Stall?
Well, yesterday it was pumping my basement to get all the flood water out from the
Oh,
big storm we had.
sorry.
So that was so yesterday was an abnormally, let's say, a normal day. uh get up, come to the office, and we sit down. We have a couple of weekly checkpoints
Right.
that we get together with the full Legends team, and we kind of go over top level thinking, what's the next thing that we need to be thinking about, where are we going to have to pivot because new information has come in. Those kind of meetings we have twice a week. We also have meetings with our Disney partners to go through issues and topics to make sure that we have all the latest and greatest information from the studio, and that we are on the right track to make sure that everything that we're creating is done the way that everybody wants it to. And if something is not, that's when we sit down and say, okay, how can we address this? What can we do to fix it? Usually throughout the course of the week, we also get sample drops. We get notifications from our offices across the seas that things are on their way to us, and they all arrive to us as either VSP, EPs, or FEPs, which are different classifications for prototypes, from the unpainted rough that are shot in weird, crazy colors, all the way up through final packaged presentation models in packaging. And we have to review every one of those things. We rip them all open. We go through them. We make all of our notes. Our sculpting team comes in and sits down, and they look through them as well to make sure we didn't miss anything. And we just try to make sure that everything's all buttoned up and as awesome as it possibly can be to make the strongest offering, for each and every character. So it's a lot of that from the day to day. And then you have to set that extra little bit of time aside to, what are we going to do next?
Yeah.
Like, we've grown this business into such an amazing thing, and it's a blast to work on. But if we want it to live, we can't just sit back and hope. We have to actively be pursuing what's coming next. So it's working with our bosses and the full team of development here in Rhode Island, as well as our partners at Disney, to make sure that we're all kind of keeping our foot on the gas, and
Right.
making sure that we're not missing things, and that we're being open to new opportunities or new ways to look at the development to make sure that, as amazing as the figures are today, hopefully, 5 years from now, we're having a conversation that's like, I can't believe how outdated those things were that you did way back, just a couple of years ago, because, we're always evolving and trying to figure out ways to improve. the craft.
It definitely shows. Like I said, it's, you know, you can definitely see the evolution of, in terms of the engineering that goes into these figures, which is always amazing. It's just,
Absolutely.
you know, going to the pinless and other things, and, you know, increasing the range of mobility for different, more points of articulation. It's just, it's amazing, just the engineering, you know, over, like I said, over the years, from that first wave to what we have on the shelves today. It's just so much of an improvement. It's funny. It's entertaining too.
It is. It's fun to look back. It's like I like to find the first version of a character that I worked on and then compare it to like the latest and greatest, and just kind of it's a good reminder of where we've been, where we've come from, and where we're going. Because when you put some of those old characters next to like a brand new thing, and you're just like, wow, we did this really well back then. But then you're like, oh, but there's so much that can be improved from everything. I mean, I don't think there's any, I don't think anything that we do, that anybody does, is like that's perfect. It never can be improved upon. I think there's always ways that we can, you know, be willing to look at a product differently, or with fresh eyes, and figure out new ways to improve, tweak, or adjust to you know, make sure that all of our fans are engaged, feel like they're, you know, part of the journey with us, and, you know, want to come back and collect more.
That's great. Well, Dwight, I appreciate you taking the time. It's nice to do a deep
Absolutely.
dive in your background and stuff. And you know, thank you so much, man. I
My
appreciate
pleasure. Great seeing you virtually, and I hope to see you at one of the shows again. Now that we're doing a whole nother year, hopefully I'll catch you at some point at a con in 24.
it. Yeah, it looks like probably not till New York Comic Con for me, but
Fair enough. It's a date.
yeah, no Toy Fair unfortunately this year, so that's kind of
Yeah,
weird.
that's
But
what. That's in the fall, or is that back in February?
no,
I don't
it's they're putting it. I think it's March of
March.
2025,
Okay.
because they
Okay.
want it a little warmer instead of all of us freezing our butts off. So
I'll take that.
I'm not complaining. So,
Sounds
but
good.
but again, thank you so much, Dwight.
My pleasure. Good talking with you. Have a great day.
Bye.